he's bringing chulin into the temple because he didn't have to give those coins. So what's the big deal?
Therefore, they're not consecrated. If you didn't have to give it, they don't become in. So therefore, it's like chulin.
Okay. I thought chulin lazara means that you can't bring a sacrifice in the chulin sacrifice. Here, they're just giving it as a gift. No.
So that's what he's going to add.
It says over here that when they would contribute the shkolim, the half a shekel, they would technically have partial ownership of these communal offerings. So how can they be eaten? Because they would be regarded as Kohanim's meal offerings, which has to be totally burnt.
Right, that's the question. That's the question. That's Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai interpreting explaining the Kohanim's interpretation. Now, the way the Rabbeinu Gershon explained is that Mayal Chulin Ba'azara is that the sacrifices that are now bought with these coins weren't consecrated, and therefore part of the sacrifice isn't consecrated. Cool. And therefore those sacrifices are considered chulin because they weren't obligated to give those coins. So that part of it is going to be mundane. So the Gemara answers the ma'isi lo masal litzibur, that when they bring it, they give it to the community. In the community, it becomes sanctified through the community. Okay. So Salkadait Chamina, I could have thought like this. Now we didn't finish what we're discussing. We're discussing about Erachin here. And we wanted to say that it's important that it says Kainim Leviim in Yisraelim can pledge someone's value to the temple. Hayol Ksiv, because it says in the pasuk V'kol Erka Chayeh B'Shekel HaKodesh that all of your pledges should be given in the holy shekel. Called the Isa b'shkalim Isa b'erachin. Anyone that has to give the shkalim has to give the erachin, has to give the pledges. However, v'hani kayanim hayol v'lesna b'shkalim lesna b'erachin. I could have thought like this: Kayanim, according to Ben Bukhari, doesn't have to give the shekel. He doesn't have to give the shekel. Maybe he doesn't have to keep the pledge of erachin because it says the erachin are done with shkalim. And we're going to learn that anyone that doesn't have to do the shkalim doesn't have to do the erachin. He says Kamash Malan that's not true. Kamash Malan that Kayanim have to keep their pledge if they pledge someone's value to the temple based on their age. Amalei Abaya says 1 second. That pasuk that you just said, tells me. You wanted to say that tells me that someone that's not obligated in shkalim shouldn't have to do the erachin, and you have to tell me that the chiddush from the Mishnah that it's not so. That pasuk tells me something else entirely. It says, "Hay v'chal erachin shatamarech le'yibchus misela hudasa." It's coming to tell me that one of the halachas of erachin is that if the person doesn't have all the money that he pledged, that he can give less. They evaluate how much he owns, and he can give based on his worth, on the pledger's worth. But nevertheless, it can't be less than a selah. Even, I'm sorry.
He gets a mortgage.
You mean his credit score?
No, he goes to Pinchas.
So even though he can pay less than what he pledged, but it can't go under a selah. That's what we learn over here. The shekel is a selah. Okay. So according to Abaya, we don't have a chiddush of the Mishnah of Kayanim Leviim Yisraelim. He doesn't accept that thing that Kayanim maybe don't have to do shkalim, so therefore they don't have to do erachin. They don't have to keep that pledge. He doesn't accept that. He says that pasuk tells me something else. So according to Abaya, what's now Kayanim Leviim Yisraelim? What's the chiddush of telling me that those three need to do erachin? I would never have thought differently. Elamar Abaya, rather Abaya says differently. It's necessary to say Kayanim Leviim Yisraelim. Sal kadait chamina. Could enter your mind to say Hayalaksiv Peduyev ben Chaydash Tifte be'erkecha. Pidyon haben is done from 1 month old. Kol de Isa, in it says the word be'erkecha with their value. Kol de Isa b'pidyon haben Isa be'erchen. Anyone that has to do pidyon haben has to keep the erchen. Bahani kayanim, but a kayan himself that has a child, we learned already that the kayanim don't, if they can redeem, if the kayanim themselves, we learned in Bechayras, if the kayanim can redeem in the desert, the kayanim were a redemption for the Bechar. Every firstborn was redeemed with one kayan, right? Every firstborn. No, in the midbar, we had the Becharim were supposed to do the service, and the Kayanim took them over, right?
Right.
So each Bechar was redeemed with one person, with one Kayan. Right. So if the Kayanim were able to redeem a Bechar, for sure the Kayanim don't need their own redemption. That's what we learned over there. So a Kayanim doesn't need to redeem his own son.
I thought that they said that when they were making the amounts, they said this amount redeems all the Yidden. How come there's an extra amount? Because that extra amount were redeeming the Kohanim themselves.
No. So those Becharim, those extra amount, that was the Becharim of the Kohanim that didn't need.
So why would they need to be redeemed if they didn't need it?
Let me look at it. I understand what you're saying. Let me clarify who had the extra amount there.
But automatically, without this,
But if they didn't need to be redeemed, why did they have to be?
They didn't need this because of that story, exactly. Because they got redeemed with that extra.
Because they were automatic.
And they didn't need to be redeemed if they got redeemed.
They're still before.
They didn't need to replace the other Becharim because they were anyways Becharim from amongst the Kohanim. So Hayal Valesnu b'Pidyon haben, because Kohanim don't have Pidyon haben less than Be'erchen, so they also don't have Erchen. Kamash Malan comes to teach us that no, a Kohen has to keep Erchen. Okay. Amalei Rava says Elamayata Gabe Ayal Asham. If this is how you're going to look at this, that any time it's going to say Erkecha, you're going to say that it doesn't work with a Kohen or something, or as someone that's excluded from that, they're not going to have to keep the Erchen. So let's take another pasuk. This is Rava responding to Abaya. Rava says, El Asham. If someone takes an oath falsely, he has to bring a guilt offering. Diksiv es Ashama Yavil Hashem. If the guilt offering is brought to Hashem, Ayel Tamim Min Azachar. It's a Riyam Be'erkecha. With Erchen. We're going to say, Hachinami called Isa Be'erchen, Isa Ba'ayel Hashem. You're going to tell me only someone that has to keep Erchen, that's in Erchen, has to bring this sacrifice if he swears falsely, this guilt offering. But Tumtum Adreganis Lesnu Be'erchen, we said someone whose gender, it wasn't clear if he's a male or a female, he didn't have Erchen. So Lesnu Be'el Hashem, if he swears falsely in court, he doesn't have to bring it because he doesn't have Erchen. You're going to mix Erchen into everything because it has the word Erkecha. This is Rava responding to Abaya, that Abaya did this in another source. He's asking over here. Elama Rava says, V'itema Ravashi. That's interesting. It's a big jump over there. Rava to Ravashi says, it's necessary to say this. Sal K'ayt Chamina, it's necessary to say Kayanim have to keep Erchen. Hayuluksiv Emid Lifnei Kayan. How do you evaluate how much the person is worth, or how much the person can afford? They stand them in front of the Kayan, for like Kayan lifnei Kayan, but not a Kayan in front of a Kayan. So I could have thought that maybe a Kayan doesn't have to give the pledge, because the person that pledges is stood before a Kayan, and it doesn't say that a Kayan stands before a Kayan. You would think only a Yisrael would be standing before the Kayan to evaluate his Kamash Malon. Comes to teach us that no, that even a Kayan has to keep that pledge. Okay. Can I go a drop further to the end of the page? Yeah. Ne'arachin, they get evaluated as well. Lasuye, this is coming to include menuvel mukashkin, someone that really has no value. If he would be sold as a slave, But when it comes to Erachin, when his value is being pledged under the category of Erachin, which has to do with his age, not with his value as a slave, then that money still has to be given. Because he does have value. Minan Emili, where do we know this from? The Tanur Rabbanan, it says, Stored in a Bais Be'erkecha lahavi erech sasim. So the Gemara is going to say, when it says Be'erkecha, it's coming to include unspecified value. If someone says, I pledge the value of so-and-so's arm, that's not considered a pledge over here. Maybe if someone says, I'm going to pledge the value of so-and-so's heart, something that his whole life is dependent on, maybe he's also exempt. No, it says souls. That when the pledge goes along with the person's life, if it's something that the life is dependent on, you say, I'm giving the value of so-and-so to the temple. Okay, good. I'm giving the value of so-and-so's heart to the temple. That's as if you said, I'm giving the value of so-and-so. Because his life is dependent on. If I say I give the value of so-and-so's finger, so that doesn't count. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Then it says, goes on, we're learning more in the pasuk. Nefashes v'lei hames. Only someone that's alive you can pledge their value, not someone that died. Oitias hames v'lei oitias hagaises. I only exclude of someone that died, but not someone that's about to die on his deathbed. Talmud Laimar v'hemid v'herech. It's not so. He has to be able to stand up to evaluate. Kol sheyeshnim ba'amada yeshnim ba'aracha v'chol she'enim ba'amada enim ba'aracha. So I can't pledge someone that's a gaisus either. Davaracher, another pshat here, and we're learning the pasuk. Nefashes, when it says that you pledge the life of someone, Eily echad sheherech echad. I only know someone that pledges the value of one person. What about echad sheherech meya minayin? How do I know if one person pledges a whole group of people? Well, I'm pledging all of their value to the temple. Talmud Laimar nefashes. It says nefashes. That's a plural. It means even more. Davaracher, another interpretation. Nefashes Eily ish sheherech ish. I'm sorry. I only know if a man pledges the value of a man or a woman. What about Isha she'aricha ish? If a woman pledges, this happens from the gallery up top when you hear the call out. Isha she'aricha isha, or a woman.
The husband nullifies.
It could, he can, but
if it's too much.
But if he doesn't. Minayin, how do we know that they have to keep this pledge? It says a plural, which is including more. Davaracher, another pshat, nefashis l'rabis minuv l'mukashchin. Okay, let me stop over here. We'll do the davaracher tomorrow.
Earlier, at the end of Gemara Chagiga, it says that Bizman shebeis hamikdash kayim, mizbeach mechaper. Bizman she'ein beis hamikdash kayim, l'karbana shel adam mechaper. So when you eat, that's like